Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Give 'em Heck podcast. I'm Brian, this is your host, Penny, and today we have a very exciting episode for you. Why don't you tell us what we're talking about today?
Okay, and first I do want to throw out our disclaimer that we're not doctors, psychologists, or counselors, that we're not given any medical or psychological advice, and we're just simply here to discuss real life situations, things that we've been through. Hopefully, in these episodes, you find something to glean from that might help you in those situations where you find yourself in places where we do. Not to say that you handle them the same way, but maybe just give you a better or a different perspective of where life is, and because life can leave us sometimes with more questions than answers, and we're also trying to find ourselves through this. So we're happy that you're here with us today. And as the podcast grows, we hope that we can all grow together because like we always say, support is really important.
Absolutely, yeah. And everybody who's returning in from prior episodes, thank you so much for tuning in. We're very happy to have you here. And to anybody new, welcome.
Yes, absolutely. And we will give our email at the end of the show. Please feel free to comment. We want to hear things from you, maybe even suggestions on things that you'd like to hear, ways that you'd like to change this up, a little bit as far as what you'd like to see, what you'd like us to talk about. And as always, like, share, and subscribe our podcast shows. So in that today, in our last episode, we talked about dealing with feelings and controlling our emotions. And our hope is that with our last episode, we encouraged you to find a way forward with dealing with your feelings and not letting your emotions control you, that you're able to find a way forward in that.
Absolutely.
So today's topic, we're going to be talking about the difference between existing and living.
Okay. Yeah, we talked about that before. At least be like, you've asked me the question before, and I've even asked some of my other friends, like, are you surviving or are you living?
Right.
There's a difference.
There is a big difference. And with anything, there's always that fine line.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that fine line may be, it could be perspective. It could be how you deal with your situation. It could be how you, again, deal with your emotions, how you let those things move you, what drives you. So with that being mentioned, that's my question to you, Brian, is what do you think the difference is between existing and living?
I think one is can be narrowed down very simply to just going through the motions. You know, just like a routine in your mind, the way you act, the way you're basically on just autopilot. You're not living. You're just there.
Right.
You know, because I've even had some of my friends that are going through a hard time. You know, I end up asking them, like, how are you doing? They're like, I'm here, or I'm existing.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, you're not living.
There's almost like there's no purpose to them.
Right. There's no purpose.
You know? Yeah.
That's the problem. Like you said, you're just going through the motions. Do you think most people live every day like that, just existing?
Circumstances, I think, can lead people to falling into that hole of, like, not really having anything to be excited to wake up for in the morning, you know?
Okay. And do you think that, and I'll give you my perspectives on this in a minute, but I understand when you say existing, it's kind of like mundane, or you just kind of get up every morning and it's kind of like Groundhog Day. You get up at 5 o'clock because the alarm goes off. You go take a shower, brush your teeth, get dressed, and go to work. You come home, you eat your dinner, you go to bed, you get up the next day, and you do the same thing. But existing, I think, personally, is finding your purpose.
You know, it's funny because I was listening to... I listen to episodes of certain things when I'm at work. Like, I'll have my earphone in and I'll just listen to stuff. And somebody in one of those videos, I wish I could remember the video, but this quote stuck with me throughout the entire day. The person looked at, like, I was on break, so I was watching it on my phone. And this person looked at the other person they were talking to and said, are you fighting to live or are you living to fight?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, that's a good quote.
That is good. So again, it's purpose, right?
Purpose is everything in any person's life. I don't care if it's something small, like just getting up to be excited to go work out or go on a hike or go fishing or, just gaming. Anything that you strive to do that gives you inspiration is
The drive.
the drive to do that and to do it well,
Yeah.
and becoming good at something.
So you're saying that anything can give that.
Absolutely. And it's different for everybody. You could look at one person's hobby and think, wow, that's really stupid. Well, to them it might be, but to you it could be the world.
Right.
It could be the only thing that gives you, like, not necessarily to make it sound like that's a very small thing to have purpose for, but because of circumstances that happen in people's lives, that small thing could be everything.
Right.
Which is why I think some people fight so hard for certain things. Some things we may consider like silly or stupid,
Right.
whatever the word may be. To that person, like I said, it could be everything.
Right. And that was part of the part where the podcast for me personally grew. Was I remember one day I was really, really struggling with my mother's death, and I was really upset. I was depressed. I was, all those things. And I guess lost sight, maybe, and maybe that is purpose. And I just felt like I had nothing more to live for. I had nothing more to give. I felt like I was completely drained. There was just nothing left. I was done. I didn't care about anything anymore. Life had sucked me dry. And one of my coworkers looked at me and she said, "But don't you have a son? Don't you have a family?" And I thought, wow. And you could sit there and say, well, duh, that's stupid. But when you're brought that low in your life where you feel like just taking the next breath is immense, for them to say something like that threw me back. Because I was like, wow, where am I leaving everybody else out in life because I can't get past this? Does that make sense?
It's almost like life becomes a chore.
Exactly. It was so heavy. It was such a heavy feeling. It was such a burden on me. And I'm still working through that because some days are still worse than others. I'm not going to sit here and lie and tell you I've made it. Life is great. I get up every morning and woohoo, No. I think you have to find sometimes a reason to get up.
And yeah, like I said, that could be many different things to many different people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You lose something, it can feel like you have nothing left.
Oh yeah,
because I've been there. We've all been there.
Oh yeah, I find too that even when we've talked about finding things in your life that drive you, with the podcast being something to help us get through this, I felt like there were times that because I felt like I had lost so much of myself, this is helping me to find myself again. You really can lose yourself in every area of your life to where you get up in the morning, you look in the mirror and you don't even know who you are anymore.
Yeah, you're looking at a stranger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as weird as that sounds, it definitely is. I mean, and you feel so alone because I compare it to the fact that there were some mornings that I would get up with so much pain and anguish and unanswered questions and the struggle of all of it that I literally felt like I was screaming into a paper bag and no one could hear me. And all I wanted was help. I just wanted someone to recognize me, maybe not for the attention, but just to notice that I was still here. Just some glimpse of existence because I have felt like I had lost such a part of my life.
Yeah, you're releasing an angry, silent scream.
Exactly. Because I remember when Mom passed away in the hospital, I was standing over her bed when she took her last breath, and I just said, I don't know how to live without you. Yeah, it's hard. And it can be for some of you, it could be a relationship that no longer exists, not because that person isn't here because they've passed away, but maybe that relationship was caused through a breakup or a divorce. I think you can feel a lot of those pains through that too.
Oh yeah.
Well,
see, the loss of a loved one is something that I think a lot of people can relate to. because you can lose a lot of different, like, not just a family member as far as, somebody you're related to, but, a pet,
Yeah.
just the loss of something or someone that you love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some of it, I think too, to move on, some of it does depend on that we don't need like we said last week, you don't need the approval of other people. And I wasn't looking for the approval of other people. I didn't really care what other people thought of me, and I don't think we need that to move on. So because I say I wasn't looking for the approval of others to move on, I was just looking for a reason to move on. I needed something to give me purpose. That was it, And when she said, well, don't you have a son? Don't you have a family? I thought, wow, yeah, I do. And I started thinking, who else am I forgetting through all of this? I was forgetting who I was, but it affects everybody. It wasn't just affecting me, it was affecting everyone in this situation.
Well, I think that even goes into like one of our prior episodes where we said that when you lose yourself in your feelings, it can affect the people around you as well emotionally or with their feelings.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because
so it kind of ties back to further episodes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it all ties together. It's all one big. So my question to you, Brian, with existing and living is, do you think life just happenstancely happens?
You mean like if there are accidents in life? How would you define that?
Like, can you change your circumstance, or does it just happen? Like, whatever's going to happen today is going to happen. Like I know I've said to you before, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it is what it is. Is it really?
I think the circumstance can be set. The circumstance is set in stone. Like you wake up in the morning, you don't know what's going to happen the next minute, and when it happens, it happens. But I think the way that you handle it can turn something around that was bad and make it into something good. Like you have more control than you think you do.
Really?
Yeah.
Explain.
Well, like for example, one of my friends had her account hacked, and she was about to lose everything. And the funny thing is that before her account got hacked, she wanted to stop talking to me for a while. We had gotten into a little bit of an argument. And I was like, okay, I'm here when you're ready to talk about the circumstance. Well, her account got hacked like 10 minutes later. And behind the scenes, she was losing her mind. Like she was trying so hard to figure out, because she told me this later. She was like, oh my God, I'll never be able to talk to him again. I have no other way to contact him. That account was everything.
Oh, wow.
And then out of the blue, I was like, something about her account doesn't look right. So I shot her a text. And then she's like, I completely forgot I had your number. So she came back and she's like, that made me realize that I could have lost you. That would have been the last thing that we talked about, was that argument.
Right.
And then she's like, it was almost like a realization. And I can't remember if we'd mentioned this in the podcast in any prior episodes, but it's like, you don't know what you got till it's gone.
Absolutely.
And so like when she came back, we confided in each other. We apologized.
Right.
Because we realized how small the argument was in the grand scheme of things.
Oh, yeah. And how precious life is.
Yeah.
Like after losing Mom and me just kind of secluding myself from everybody and everything and just needing that time, I guess. Everybody grieves different. I get it. But mine went to an extreme. I think it's things like that. Like when that girl said that to me, or when that happened to your friend, you realize that you have to live among the living.
Well, it's like not only that, but you have to you understand, like in the grand scheme of your life, a problem is only as big as you make it.
True.
And I don't mean that in the sense of like your problems aren't as important. That's
Right.
not what I'm saying. It's like, I can't remember the name of the astronaut, but he went into space. I think it was one of the astronauts who went to the moon, actually. And don't quote me on that, but it was an astronaut. I know that for a fact because he looked at Earth on his way away from it.
Oh, I remember this. Yes.
And he looked at the Earth and he said something along the line. It's not a direct quote, but he was like, our problems look so small from up here.
Yeah. Yeah. And things do get better. Like, I really thought, and I think this kind of goes along with what you just said, I really thought when Mom took her last breath and I told her, I said, I don't know how to live life without you. I never thought I could ever even be where I am right now. I know those of you that are, watching, you're like, well, you look like you're doing okay to me. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Thank you. But I'm just saying that you will move on. You can. And not to say that from this point to then that everything's been just peachy. It hasn't.
Well, it's like in the midst of a storm, you have the storm is one thing. The storm is something you have no control over. But it's how you react to the storm that can make everything better.
Yeah, you can sink or swim, I guess.
You have more power than you think you do.
Yeah.
Because I even told that to some people that I was talking to in one of my groups. They were talking about some stuff they were going through. And I proposed that to them. I was like, you guys have so much more power over your situation than you think you do. And they're like, how? We can't do anything about this. We have nothing else to... We have no purpose now. And I'm like, really? And I said, I want you to stop what you're doing real fast and just take a deep breath and think of all the things that you have in your life. I said, where do you live right now? Like, we have a roof over our head. We're in our house. Okay. You have food in your fridge? Yeah. You got people who love you? Yeah. You have friends and family? Yeah. And they're like, huh.
Yeah, no, and it's true because you can get in such a state of, I guess, depression, solitude, and lock yourself away to such a point where, yeah, you forget about yourself, but you really forget about others. And like you said, things around you.
Mm-hmm. The problems can consume you.
Yeah.
And I think that can be by design. It's very easy to hit rock bottom while you're still falling, if that makes sense. Like, you've almost accepted the fact that you're going to hit rock bottom.
Well, yeah, because you get to the point where you think every day is going to be a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the sense in it? Because nothing's ever going to change.
And that's what I meant earlier when I said, like, is a problem really as bad as you're
Right.
making it out to be? Because, while you're still falling,
Right.
You're like, well, I'm going to hit the bottom anyway. I might as well just give up here.
Hit it hard.
Meanwhile, there's a rope right beside you as you're falling. Just, it might
Right.
hurt to grab onto it because you're sliding down, but eventually you're going to stop and you can
Right.
pull yourself up.
Right. No, it's true. And
As an analogy.
when you're put in that situation where you're falling, and you get up every morning and you think, oh, it's just another day, the crap's going to hit the fan sometime today, I'm just waiting for it. I think you kind of fall into that mindset too of Murphy's Law. It happened, there it is. And that's why I was asking you, do you think you can change your situations?
I think you can change the outlook on it. Just like you said, bad things are going to happen.
So
It's just life.
Does the outlook change the situation? Or is it your outlook that changes you in the situation?
I think changing your outlook on the circumstance is a reflection of you as a person. Like, if you wake up knowing bad things are going to happen, but you tackle it head on and say, I'm just going to, give it the best I can, it reflects on you for the people around you. Like, wow, that person's not afraid to fail.
Oh, wow. And that brings me to another point, is that after Mom's passing, because I didn't let a lot of people see the things that I tell you guys on this podcast is a lot of people would say to me, "You're so strong." And I remember thinking in my head one day, the next person that says that to me, I'm going to punch them in the face. Because I was so tired of hearing that. Because inside, I felt like I was just done. And I didn't feel strong. And when they say that to me, I'm thinking, what are they seeing that I'm not seeing? Because I don't feel that way. I'm not strong. I am falling apart. But see, that's what they seen. Is it because that's what I showed them? I don't know. I feel I've gotten better. I don't think I'm definitely who I used to be before Mother passed away. No, definitely not. It took a part of me that I'm still trying to work on. But I don't know. Is it perspective?
Perspective can be a lot of it. I think it could just be an overall outlook, you know, and it all depends on what you were willing to make of it. You know, like
So
for me, when Nana passed, I didn't think of what I would have without her. I thought about all of the good things that happened.
Wow. See, and that's so opposite of me. Because I never thought that there would be any good things.
Well, who approaches a situation like that? Like, I'm not trying to butter myself up when I say this, but like, when you have something good happen to you and it's gone, do you either sit there and think, wow, I'll never be able to have that again? Or do you say, I'm thankful for the opportunity that I had?
But that takes a strong person, Brian, to be able to do that. I remember one day I was in the kitchen and we were kind of talking about that, and you came up behind me and you said, why can't you just be thankful for the memories that you had with Nana? Why can't you just... And I knew you weren't being, condescending or anything. You were really helping me through that moment, because I said to you, you asked me if there was one thing I could have, what would it be? And I said, to bring Nana back. And you said, for what reason? For you or for her? And you said, are you being selfish?
I was just about to say that.
And I said, maybe. And you said, but maybe this is what's best, and you can't accept it.
I don't, I wish I could remember all of that, because I know it was a kind of a long conversation, but it goes into that where it's like, when you lose something good and you want it back, is it because of you? You're only thinking about yourself in a lot of terms. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Inherently, all human beings are selfish. That's just our nature. But, as an intelligent individual, you can look at a situation and say, it'd be nice to have it back, but man, were the times good.
How do you get there?
It takes a lot of and of course, it all goes into how people bring their mindsets into things. Because I've been through a lot in my life, a lot. I'm not going to sit here and say that
we don't have time.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that I've been through any more or any less than anybody else watching. But without going into detail on my life, I've been turned on so many times for no reason. Even people in my own family would put judgment on me because of how I am. And, I just have to think they just don't understand. So I have to be thankful that they were there at one point and now they're just not. And that's okay, because I'm okay.
Really?
Yeah. It all depends on perspective. Obviously, that's just my personal experience. But like I said, when you've been through what I've been through, sometimes you just gotta be the bigger person.
So you say that you think of Nana's situation now, and you move on and live every day of your life, every day of your life, because
I'm part cat, apparently.
Because you're happy for the memories that you had with Nana. I sit here and struggle with the fact that all I want is for her to come back. And I can't even think of the happy memories because everything else consumes so much of me. How do you get from here where I am to where you are? How does that happen? Or will I ever?
As much as I'd love to give you an answer to that, it just has to be a personal thing. I think it could all be in how you were raised, how you were, the circumstances that happened to you throughout your life. It could be a multitude of things. And I mean, it could just be somebody like me coming along and telling you that it to me, it came easy. But don't think that I was like this my entire life. There was a time where every bad thing that happened to me would just beat me down more and more and more until eventually I just got up and said, I'm done. I'm done. You want to keep treating me like that? You go right ahead. I'm responsible for myself. And I'm going to put, the good memories to the front, and I'm going to put the bad behind me, because what's the bad going to do for me?
Oh, that's good, Brian.
The bad memories aren't going to, bad things don't do a thing for you.
Wow. And
you can learn from bad memories. You can learn from the bad, but you carry the good with you because it's the good that brings you forward.
do you ever have a bad day?
Oh, trust me, I do. I have bad days. But do I let that stop me?
You don't, and that's why I sit here, and I'm your mother, so I'm older than you, obviously, and I think to myself, how is it that you're teaching me how to live when it should be the other way around? Silence. Okay, and then there's that. I don't know. I mean,
trust me.
I'm looking for an answer.
Like I said,
it's
I really
right.
wish I could. I really wish I could give you an answer to that. I don't know. Like I just said,
was it a decision that you just woke? Well, honestly, because it's what you kind of said. Was it a decision? And even if it is.
Well, think of it like this, as a metaphor, for example. Imagine you getting yourself, you wake up every morning and there's a guy out in your front yard that just beats you up every morning for no reason. Eventually, when do you say enough? Do you just sit there and let him keep beating you over the head with a 2x4? Or do you take that 2x4 from him and start beating him with it? You know?
Yeah. Okay.
And sorry for the sake of the violent metaphor, but I mean...
No, I understand what you're saying. Because really, you're beating yourself up.
Yeah, you're letting it happen. And that's what it goes back into what we're talking about. Like, do you fight to live, or do you live to fight?
But you have to have a reason, right? Isn't that's what living
mm-hmm.
is a reason? You can't just, to exist, you don't really need anything. All you need is really a heartbeat.
And that's why I said earlier, you have more power than you think you do. You are limiting yourself by not allowing yourself to move on.
Wow. That's good. So what are some feelings or emotions, since we've talked a little bit about that we may have to deal with in order to move on from existing to living? And I'm going to give you my answer to that first. One of the big, emotions, I think it is more than a feeling, is regret through all of it. Because I look back at the situation and I think, maybe if I could have done something different. And I think this applies to anybody's situation, not just mine. But I think with the regret with me, it wasn't guilt. Believe it or not, it was not guilt. It was regret. Because I looked back at the situation and I thought, maybe I could have done something different. Maybe I could have, maybe this or maybe that. And I've had people say to me, do you think, though, maybe you did everything you could? I can't answer that. But living with regret, to me, is even harder than living with guilt. Because maybe that could have changed some things.
Nope. I am completely contrast to that. I live life with no regrets.
How do you do that?
You just don't. Because decisions are made every day. The path you choose that morning is something that you already have planned out. You're going to make decisions. You can't take them back. The best thing you can do, see, when I dealt with it, I didn't have regret. I had lessons and I learned from them. And they help me with future situations that are similar to what I went through. Because regret is just another stick beating you up. It's just another thing that holds you down. Think, oh, I should have did that differently. I should have did that differently. Nope, you did what you did. Now, are you going to let that decision, that regret, are you going to let that linger over you like a black cloud?
I don't want to.
Or are you going to take that regret and say, I'm not letting that happen again?
So you can honestly sit here and tell me that.
Because that's the difference. A lot of people that have regrets end up repeating the same problem.
Oh, that's true.
They a lot of times will just fall right back into the same rut.
So you think your life, when you get up in the morning, your day is already planned? I mean, to a degree, right?
Yes and no. Like, obviously, we don't know what the future is. But essentially, you know, your decisions in your mind are going to be presented before you. You know, you're going to make the choices that you're going to make because that's who you are. You make decisions based on who you are. That's why everybody makes different decisions for different reasons. Mm-hmm. So, like, you wake up in the morning, the decisions you made, by the time you lay your head back down on your pillow, your day's done. And that day is defined by you. You are the main character in your own story.
So you're trying to tell me that you don't have any regrets because you're not responsible for other people.
And I'm not saying it in the sense of like, if I couldn't live it again, that I wouldn't do things differently. Of course I would. And I think a lot of people would.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I haven't discovered time travel yet. So I can't redo my decisions. But I learn from regret. And that can, again, like I said earlier, it defines who you are as a person. And it reflects who you are when you decide to not let problems destroy you. Or I should say past problems.
So do you think where you are today compared to, let's say, 2 years ago?
I'm not even the same person I was a year ago.
Are you better?
I am me. And I am happy to be myself. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I'm not better. I'm not worse. I am me.
Are you...
And I am proud of who I am.
Are you striving? Or do you feel like with what you just said about who you are, that you don't really have to strive because you know who you are?
Exactly. I don't strive to be better because nobody's perfect. Nobody can be the best version of themselves because that person doesn't exist. The only thing that I strive for is to be me.
Wow.
And if anybody has a problem with that, then they can get behind me. Because I'm only walking one direction and it's forward.
Oh, I love it. You shouldn't be teaching me these things. I'm your mother. So in other words, what you're saying is we don't live our lives for other people. Do we live them for ourselves?
Like I said, everybody is inherently selfish. And that's okay. It's not a selfishness of like, that's why I said I wasn't better than anybody, or I'm not even striving to be a better person for myself. I'm just me. And I'm proud of who I am. Mm-hmm. I will help people when I can. But when it's a detriment to me, that's when you have to say, is it worth it? That's why it's very hard to help a person who's not willing to help themselves. Because at that point, you're just slinging loose dirt. You know, you're not getting anywhere. Mm-hmm.
So I know, like with me, and I think it works this way for you, Brian, and you can tell me, I know with me, people, there's only two tiers to this for me. People either like me or they don't. And maybe it's my personality. I don't know. I'm going to say it is. Because I'm kind of like you in that way where I'm going to move forward when I can. You're much stronger than I am. But with that being said, my personality is I'm either here or I'm here. There's no in between with me. I am. Does that make sense? And I think because people think I'm extreme, and I can be. That's why a lot of times I have to keep a check on myself, is because if I'm here, watch out. If I'm here, it's not good. I wish I could find that balance, which is what I see in you. I see a balance in you that I don't have. You just kind of live life right here. And I think that's healthy. It's being mindful of yourself. I don't think it's being selfish. I think it's being mindful. I think the way I am sometimes is selfish, because living here or here, I'm either thinking too much about myself or too much about others, but I'm not being mindful of the whole situation. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And maybe in one of these podcasts we can talk about, like you talked about your Nana dying, and maybe I can go into more myself in one of these podcasts. But I will say that a lot of what brought me to where I'm at today, and I touched on it a little bit ago, is not so much what has happened around me that's brought me to this point. It's what's happened to me personally. Like I said, the people that have hurt me. At one point, don't think I was always this strong. I was never like this. Mm-hmm. There was a time where I let every word, every action get to me. Mm-hmm. But like I said, at one point, at some point in my life, I just said enough. Wow. Now I just don't care.
Is that healthy?
Yeah, because that's what was best for me. And I'm not saying what's best for me is best for you. Everybody has to deal with these things differently. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, for myself, I had to stop caring so much. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It was literally just me caring too much. Mm-hmm. And when I found that, when I learned to let go, that's when I started to not so much self-reflect, but I started to see people for who they were.
Wow.
I wasn't examining myself. I wasn't looking at my flaws that these people saw. I started seeing them projecting onto me.
Oh, wow.
They started to put themselves onto me. Their feelings, their emotions, their insecurities, their struggles.
Their faults.
Their faults. And then I said, I am not going to let you turn me into another version of you. I will not be brought down to your level.
Oh, wow. Wow. So that's kind of how you learned how to live then, because you became mindful of.
It's what I told you before. I've told you this in the past, that I'm self-aware. I know I'm not perfect. Nobody is. But like I just said a little bit ago, I am me. And I'm proud of that.
Wow.
And I think that's why some people hate me. A lot of people that have learned about me, they end up hating my confidence.
You have a lot of confidence.
A lot of these, even family members, have hated me for literally no reason. And if I could do it over again, I would have defended myself better, obviously, because I did let myself get stomped on a lot. But at the same time, I look at it now and I'm thinking, I'm happier than you, and you don't like that.
Well, and you said your confidence. You said your confidence. And I think people look at you like that because it's their lack of confidence in themselves. They look at, like when people look at me and they're like, wow, you're so strong. I think it's because they're not.
Yeah, I could see that in some circumstances.
I just wish I could be as happy with myself as much as you are. I have not been able to say that. Not for a long time. To be happy with, like I said, you just have this balance and wholeness about yourself that I don't feel I have.
Well, I mean, I can tell you, and again, it's circumstantial. The things you deal with are different than me. So how can I tell you, or I guess let me rephrase that. Do I have the right to tell you how you can change your outlook on yourself. Because what I went through and what you went through were two completely different things. And see, that's what you think. To me, you're not sitting there thinking, man, I wish I could do that. I think what you would want to see, or what you do see, is inspiration. And that kind of goes into it. You need something to inspire you, and that goes into today's talk, is that you need that purpose, that drive, that inspiration. But that can only come from you. And even to the people who are listening and watching, it's all up to you.
So where do you find that inspiration? What gets you up in the morning, Brian, and says, oh, I am inspired to...
Would it surprise you if I told you that there was nothing?
No, with you, nothing surprises me. That's not a good or bad statement. I'm just saying, like... I
don't mean nothing in the sense of, like, I'm just laying in bed with no purpose. I mean that in the sense of, like, you live today for the moment.
The moment.
Why do I have to worry about what's going to happen 10 minutes from now? Because in this moment, I am at peace. There's nothing wrong. Why do I have to worry about problems that aren't here yet, or problems that haven't hit yet? You know, that may have been the same thing, but what I meant to say is, like, you know, imminent issues or issues that are non-existent.
It's true.
It's like an upcoming bill, for example. You know, a lot of people struggle with bills.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask, what good does it do to worry about that bill that may be due next week when next week hasn't happened yet? And you could sit there and say, well, I don't have the money to fix it. Okay, you might not. But again, is worrying about it right now going to do anything about it?
It's true.
Live life for the moment. Because you never know what'll happen the next.
Oh, man, isn't that the truth?
It's like I told you with that astronaut who looked at Earth. He's like, our problems seem so small.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that is in the... When I listen to that, I don't think of it as he meant it literally. I think it's a point of view.
Yeah.
A problem is only as big as you make it.
Does it also have to do with what you feel you want to do in life? As far as, do you want to live or do you want to exist? Is that a choice?
Everything that you choose is your choice. And only your choice.
Wow. That is really something. So, what does life look like when you move from existing to living?
If you were to ask me that in my personal perspective,
mm-hmm.
Peaceful. Like a calm stream. No ripples, just the sound of quiet rushing water.
Yeah, because I know not, and he's not lying. Like everything he's saying to you, I'm telling you, he's not getting on here and just throwing around a bunch of, yeah. I've seen him faced with some pretty traumatic situations to the point where I've even asked him at times, again, take Nana and Papa when they passed away. Now, I don't know if you ever cried alone by yourself. I don't know. And you don't need to share that if you don't want to. But I remember going back to, I don't know if it was Nana's funeral or Papa's funeral, but I remember going back to the house after and meeting with family. And I said, I never seen you cry. And you said, I'm not sad. And I said, what do you mean you're not sad? You said, because they're happy now. They're living in their best life now. They're in heaven. They're happy. They've got no worries. Why am I upset about, why should I be upset for the fact that Nana is in no more pain? She's not suffering anymore. Papa's with Nana. That's always what he always wanted. It made sense, but it was just kind of confusing to me because at the point when I seen that you weren't crying, I thought, doesn't he feel anything about this?
And I think that's one thing that some family members said. Like, they didn't say it to me, but I could just tell by the way some of them looked at me.
Yeah, it's almost like if you don't act the typical,
Yeah.
people don't take well to that. Like, they expect certain things in certain situations, and when you don't do that, they don't know how to handle you. But after what you said to me, when you're like, well, why would I, and even in this situation, when I said to you, I want Mom back, you said, why? She's happy now. Why do you want her to come back here? And it's, again, I guess it's perspective, right? I mean, it's how you look at the big picture. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really do want to clarify that I'm not saying that, what works for me will work for you, or even to the people listening in.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody deals with situations differently. But the one thing that is in common with all of this, and we can all relate to, is that how you handle a situation is 100% up to you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Because we're not here to tell you how to feel, what to do, what not to do. That's not our right. We just share what we've been through. And because Brian and I are so different, a lot of times we glean off each other, which is really kind of funny, but, because him being my son, you would think that that's not really the person I would always go to. But I'll tell you what, the kids taught me a lot. And a lot of times him and I will just go for a ride in the car because I'm like, Brian, we need to talk, and we'll go. And he just gives me this whole different perspective on, or I'll do the same to him, but mostly it's him with me. But yeah, we're not here to tell you what to do, not to do, how to handle your situations. We're just here to say, you know what, we've done some things, we've seen some things. We're just here to say, you know what, we're all human. We're all in that same boat at times. Sometimes we're on the floor. Sometimes we need to be picked up. Some days you're the bug. Some days you're the windshield. I don't know. Wherever you're at today, again, support is really key. And just finding somebody that maybe you can share those issues with. But we want you to know that because we're doing this podcast and sharing ourselves with you, we understand that being human. Sometimes we don't like what we see. We don't like who we are.
People don't like change. See me, I'm not opposed to it.
Right. And I'm getting better with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting better with change.
Yeah.
Change is not always a bad thing. I think sometimes change can be really good. So, any other comments, suggestions to wrap it up tonight?
No, I think we've done pretty good with this episode. So
Yeah.
we thank all of you for tuning in and listening. We hope you have a wonderful evening or day, depending on when you watch this.
Mm-hmm.
And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, and before we go, again, please share, like, subscribe, turn on your notifications so you'll know when you'll see the next episode. Our email is givem, it's GIVEM, HEC, HEC, @gmail.com. Again, give us suggestions, give us comments. Even if you don't like it, it's okay. We didn't go into this with the mindset that everybody was going to be happy with it, and that's okay. But we hope that you can glean something from it. We hope that each and every episode, there's just one small little thing that we've said that will spread some sunshine into your life. And maybe with this one, you'll learn to find a way from going from existing to living.
Absolutely.
All right.
See you later, everyone.
Good night.